Okay, everybody, we are ready to start the town hall meeting. What we have here is our information for District 2. You can get a hold of us several different ways. I really wanted to expand the way that our constituents could get a hold of us. You can follow us on social media. You can email us. You can call us old-fashioned way. You can also attend our town halls. And please sign up for our newsletter. That's where we disseminate all this information. And then we also have some interactive things in the newsletter as well. Some things that are coming up, just to announce ahead of time. We're going to have a save the date for the first annual, I hope, block party, which we are planning for Saturday. It's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which is Small Business Saturday. So we are going to have it in a place where we can showcase our small businesses and encourage our neighbors to go to our small businesses, and also encourage us to build community by getting to know each other and helping each other out. So have that on your calendar, and then and you'll find all that on our website and social media. So first, we have a lineup of various city department heads and staff that are going to help us kind of understand what's going on in the city. We arranged this lineup based on the questions that we've received in the office. Probably the top two questions we get are code enforcement and traffic. So we don't have code enforcement here. We'll have them here next time. But we do have, the city manager, Steve Bermel. He will be followed by the police chief, John Perez. Then we have the fire chief, Chad Augustine. Then we have some updates from Water and Power with Bawa Gertrauen. And then we have Department of Transportation with Nadar Asmar, who will be here to talk about some of the transportation improvements. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it to our wonderful city manager, Steve Bermel.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I was asked to provide some brief updates on a few items. I'm going to hang around for the whole meeting, so if I don't touch the item of interest to you, come up and chat with me after, okay? So I was first asked to talk about our plans for Jefferson School. I want to really thank Brian McDonald and the school board for allowing us to use the facility first for our fire training academy. We graduated 13 recruits here the other week from our academy, and it's very helpful for us to have a facility that we can use as part of their training. You have probably heard that we had to shut our central library because after all these years, nearly 100 years, we realized it's an unreinforced masonry building and it's unsafe for anyone to be in the building during an earthquake. And since we don't know when an earthquake's coming, it's unsafe for people to be in the building at any time. So I've been talking with the superintendent about using this facility for some of the programming that we do normally at the Central Library. We obviously can't fit the entire Central Library here, but we're hoping to do some programs such as the children's reading room and some other things. So we're working through the terms of an agreement for our use. Hopefully we can get that concluded in the next few weeks, and you would see a presence of our library here. I think that's a good use for this facility, hopefully something that all of you would welcome. There's been some interest in Block 5, which is a funky inside baseball name for the southeast corner of Lake and Washington. That old little commercial center, there's a parking lot behind there. A lot of people think that's a city lot. It's not. It's all owned privately. The city owns a couple little pieces there. But a number of years ago, the city stepped in and got a reciprocal easement agreement put in place for all the properties there. And basically what that did was that unlocked the parking and made it operate like one big lot. So all the people coming to shop there and to go to the restaurants and what have you could shop anywhere in the lot, park anywhere. But it's been troubled over the years. There's been illegal dumping, maintenance hasn't been good, lighting isn't good, the occasional bad thing happens in that parking lot. And what we're doing now is we're working with the merchants to increase the annual assessment that they pay. We will then take that money and reinvest it in the lot to improve its maintenance, add lighting, and make it feel safer, make it look prettier, and hopefully improve that area. So that's what plans for that are. In terms of big picture city financial picture, we were doing really good until COVID and the associated recession. The good news is, because we had been very conservative in our finances, we had enough reserves to absorb the shock from the economic downturn. We also spent a lot of money to support our community. We returned $11 million to electric customers through rebates on our surcharge. We provided money for meal programs. We spent the money to support the outside dining, largely in Old Pasadena. So we spent a lot of money and we lost a lot of money. So that's usually not a good combination. So as we put together this year's budget, things were not looking so good. We did have a balanced budget when we adopted it, but looking forward, because of the challenges we're facing, because the city general fund had to help with the debt service for the Rose Bowl Stadium, a few months ago, we were looking at about a $6.8 million operating loss in the current year. Thankfully, through the American Rescue Plan, the money that came from Washington, we were able to erase that deficit and fund some of the capital projects that we weren't going to be able to do because we took that money to shore up the hole in the operating budget. So things look a lot better now. We still see red ink going forward. In June of next year, we'll get another $26 million. So that will be another huge shot in the arm to help address what's going on with the budget shortfall. The long-term challenge, and Councilmember Williams has been focused on this particularly, is that around the Rose Bowl. The city issued $180 some odd million in debt a number of years ago to build a new pavilion and make some other enhancements. By the time it's all said and done, with the interest cost, it will be just shy of $300 million in payments over 30 years. The expectation was that the Rose Bowl could generate sufficient revenue to pay that debt service. It's increasingly looking like it can't because of changes in the marketplace, which then puts pressure on the city's general fund because the city issued the bonds. It's like buying your kid a car and the kid telling you, well, I'll make the payments, but if they can't make the payment, it falls back on you because you signed for it. So we're currently working through that. That is a significant challenge, I want to be honest with you. And then the last thing I'm going to touch on is rent and other COVID relief programs. So I just mentioned to you some of what we were doing to help the local economy and residents throughout the COVID recession. Pasadena, like a lot of cities, enacted a moratorium on residential and commercial evictions. Today, the county's eviction moratorium went away. They put some small things in place. I'm still trying to understand them, mostly on the commercial side. But the residential eviction moratorium went away in the county. Pasadena's moratorium is still in place because it's not tied to a specific date. It's tied to whenever the city council ends the period of emergency. I anticipate that with the county action and other actions by other jurisdictions, probably the city council will need to consider that fairly soon. But in the meantime, the city itself has provided $1 million in rent relief. We've provided another just shy of $3 million through the county's program. And then about another $8 million has come through the state program. So in total, about $12 million has already been injected into local Pasadena economy to help tenants pay their rent and landlords to recoup owed rent. So that's good news. The state program is still active and there's still a lot of money there. So anybody who needs rent relief or rental assistance should go to the state's website, as I'm looking for it here. It's housing.ca.gov/COVID_RR, rent relief. And I'll make sure that the council office has this, but anyone who needs assistance, there's still a big pool of money at the state to help, so that's good news. That was it for my little prepared remarks, but again, I'll hang around until the very end.
Thank you, City Manager Steve Mermel. So what we will do is we will have the chief come up and give his remarks, and then we will take questions for the two of them because the chief needs to go to another event. So we'll take questions on the city manager and the chief after the chief speaks. Are you ready, Chief?
Oh, Throw people off a little bit. Good evening to everybody, and thank you for having us here tonight, and I do appreciate it. Public safety is always on top of everybody's mind when we're talking about security. We're talking about safety. We're talking about ensuring your police department are doing the right things, as well as being able to talk about crime. So I'll provide what I can in just a few minutes. I do want to say hello to everybody who knows me out there, and for Bertha Coleman from our Chief's Advisory, thank you. She's one of the accountability factors we have in our police department when we make sure we're doing the right things. When we talk about this area of 25,000 people, you know, we basically run from Lake out to Altadena, from Woodbury out to Del Mar. That gives you a quick snapshot of the area when I talk about crime. And we look at about, so far year to date, of our 85,000 calls for service in the city, we have about 8,500 here in this district of that 80,000 total, which is a good number, manageable number that we have. Half of those are officer-initiated calls. In other words, they're out there looking around with what might be crime and getting out of the cars and trying to act on it the best that they can. That's always difficult. Number one issue that we see is the homeless issue is increasing, correct? And so what we see here, and you ask yourself, why has it been increasing lately? Well, you're aware, last year we did a reorg for the entire police department. We flattened out the organization, we rebuilt it. At this point, it's starting to pay off. It was difficult during COVID, but we are looking at the lowest Part 1 crimes that we've had in the last 40, 50 years. Our emergency response times are the fastest we've seen probably in the last 40 years. Our crime is at its lowest points. We have double-digit decrease in crime, in both violent crime, but it doesn't mean we don't have challenges. The homeless. We eliminated the gang unit and had a different way of going after the violence with intelligence-led efforts, which is really paying off. But to do that, we created the neighborhood services section, which is focused on homeless, quality of life, and chronic problems that many times creates our type of crime that we see later on down the road based on simple calls for service on people loitering or homeless issues and things like that. So what we are seeing in LA, they're beginning to clean out the encampments. We're all seeing this. It's pushing some of the homeless into Los Angeles, into Pasadena from Los Angeles. So there's not much we could do about that with the train rails, the way they move. Pasadena is known for having services offered for its homeless people, which is a good thing. However, it has some impact. And this impact is that as we see the encampments being shut down in places off Venice and other areas, off the train stations, it is bringing more people to Pasadena. And we're using the neighborhood services section. Again, they've been around now for about a year and a half, about 18 people that work that unit to try to really get at some of these issues. So we are balancing it well. It is a problem for us, but we are seeing an increase in some of the thefts. Some of the big crime numbers, again, for the 25,000 people for an area this large, we are looking at 173 thefts year to date. 40 cars have been stolen. We have about 25 car burglaries, and we have about 9 street robberies. What the numbers mean, it means crime victims. Sometimes I can't really, put a narrative to what the crime stats mean other than reducing crime means reducing victims, which reduces the impact, the trauma of being a crime victim. And that's really our goal when we go out there and try to be visible, is try to reduce that. We're always balanced to how much policing we can do with how much prevention we want to do. The more prevention we can do, the less enforcement is going to be required. And that's really our effort for this thing, to make sure we're doing it right. So with that in mind, we do also have our biggest problems in the area continue to be 7-Eleven and the mobile gas station on Lake. And so we are making sure our people are going by there and addressing the visible problems that we see, as well as the issues as we can handle when it comes to citing people and making arrests. We're also challenged by some of the new laws that have come out. They are made to try to help people, so we just don't incarcerate our way out of having safer communities, but there's a balance between how much incarceration and citations we can do these days. Many of the misdemeanor crimes are no longer bookable. We really can't arrest for them, so we use as much persuasion as we can to try to get the homeless out of the area. So when you call and you see nothing came out of it, sometimes it's just because we don't have anything to work from. And many of the misdemeanor crimes may require a citation, but that's pretty much it. It doesn't mean we don't do anything. It just means we're challenged. We're going to keep doing what we can for you. So that closes out the information when it comes to much of what we're trying to do on crime and the information you need. On the other side of it, we are trying to increase our prevention, and we are in fact increasing our ability to give more money to our youth prevention and organizations. I will ask of everybody here, as much as you can, try to give to our youth organizations in the community. We have a Chiefs Breakfast coming up in a couple of weeks. We ensure that all the money raised goes purely to youth organizations and youth prevention. If we could do that for at least 10 years, we'll see a different community and really start to drop our crime over the years to come. So that's where we're at with all that. So that's pretty much what I have, and I don't know if I could answer questions now or just wait. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief and City Manager. So now we will take questions for these two gentlemen. If you are in the audience, there's a microphone here. I'm going to make you go Lady Gaga with the microphone over here. If you are on Zoom, you submit your question in the Q&A, and then we will read it out here once we are done with the physical questions. So it's Val, my yoga instructor.
Can I just, so hi, I'm very grateful for Pasadena Police. I've had my business for a long time on Colorado. I try to avoid calling the police. I mostly call the non-emergency number. Right now we're experiencing, it's really elevating, and the homeless is getting both aggressive and also, it's like they kind of know their rights, and it's like this balance of compassion, but they're blocking the street, they're not well. I have a current woman who's really kind of found residence on our street. They kind of almost push back on the police, and for the first time ever, I actually had a guy really high on drugs who basically was almost threatening me to give him something to leave my business. And that was a first. I've been there over 20 years. That was really a first, but this is really escalating, and I'm pretty tough. I have no problem, like, get out. I mean, I'm not scared of it. I just take care of it normally. But it's really getting to a new level. And I also realize the burden it's putting on the police. So as a community, is there anything else we can do? I mean, my business has been devastated by COVID, and now it's just one other thing. So it's this balance of compassion, but what can we do to help the police? Or what can we help our community do to be addressing really people who are high and don't want services and want to stay on the sidewalk? It's really challenging.
Absolutely. So we are challenged by some of the new policies coming out by the DA's office. We are challenged by some of our own balances and desire to try to give as much outreach as we can, but try to find that balance and when we could use enforcement measures. So it's a careful thing. We are constantly challenged that in the organization. We discuss it all the time, just so you know. But what we do ask is you call us as often as possible. You are not bothering us.
I called twice on Sunday.
You call 4 times if we need to. That's data for us. Those are algorithms for us. In other words, I'm able to look at all these calls for service. We talk as a command staff, and we try to figure out the strategies. But the more information I can get, the way we categorize crimes, the way we clear crime out, all that has helped me where I could put the officers to ensure we're doing it right. We're doing a much better job of deferring calls to nonprofits. We now have the Port 1, Port 2 teams, thanks to the fire department and Chief Chad, that you'll meet shortly, Augustine. Those are wonderful initiatives. They have to be balanced with enforcement. So there's a constant change, of how fast we go through these. So what I could ask for you now, I'll talk to the officers, we'll be getting out there more often, but just keep calling us. Do not feel like you are bothering us on phone calls, number one. Number two.
No trespass letter, too.
Oh, I don't know, do we have a trespass letter at your property? We do, usually we do, yes. So the trespass letters are great for us, but keep calling us, and the officers will work with you to make sure you have the trespass letters that we're after more often, and we're also doing the things.
So it's almost pushed them on the street. So the trespass letters kept them off the parking lot and doing drugs in the back because they know they can be arrested. But so now they're just on the sidewalk where people have to.
Right, and that's where the influence comes in, because nobody likes the police hovering over them. And we try to be as kind and nice as we can, but we will be the reason why you complain about the police as well, which is us. So we do have a place, we will get in your face, we will ask you to leave. I know people don't like that, but it comes to a place, if we've given you every chance we got and you're leaving us no options, we're gonna do the policing thing to do when everything else has failed. So please keep calling, and I'll get out there myself. If you click our website and you see my big head, just click on it, you can send me an email, and I will get out there myself, because people know in here, if you have a business, I will walk the neighborhoods myself and get out there with my team, and we'll see what we could do. All right, I make that commitment to you.
Good evening, Justin Glover. My wife and I live in Bungalow Heaven. Couple of items on Mountain. There's pretty significant speeding, and we've had a recent fatal traffic accident there. I understand there's a traffic study happening now. Would love to get an update on that. And then number two, City Manager understanding we got financial issues in the future. I would love an update on the power line undergrounding program, and if that's, pushed out further. Those would be my two items.
And I'm sorry, could you repeat what the update you want as well?
The power line undergrounding.
Oh, well, we have Kuchan Bawa here, and I think we're going to hear from Water and Power in a few minutes.
So we could save that for at that time.
But on the traffic issues, we'll make sure we get out to the bungalows to make sure we put more officers out there and just in the area in general. We're doing that more around the city, and so we just got to take an evaluation from our end. It's usually the same people causing the same problems on traffic issues.
Be kind of the main consideration from Lake.
Right,
to
we know
about,
why,
Yeah,
correct?
to Lake to about Hill.
Right.
Pretty significant speeding.
Absolutely, I know why that area. Thank you.
I'm Kathleen McGinley. I live on Las Lunas. And thank you for the patrol that's been increasing lately. We've had little issues that have ceased to happen. We'd like to know the difference, my family would like to know the difference between a citation and a ticket. I'm specifically talking about parking the car overnight. My daughter forgot. She's a PhD student whose brain is somewhere else. She got a ticket. A neighbor whose car was out 6 doors away, another date, got a citation. Can you explain?
Yeah, the citations are more moving citations, or they violate some kind of ordinance away from just a regular overnight parking ticket. So tickets, it's more of slang than anything else. We tend to look at overnight parking or cars where they shouldn't be as being tickets, but they're really the same. Citations are more to having to go to court and not just pay the fine, but having to appear on some of these issues. So it might just be terms that are being used
A
incorrectly.
citation is worse.
It can be, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's, but usually they are worse in terms of running a stop sign or speeding. Those are citations.
Well, they were both.
The same?
They were both on the car in the morning.
Yeah,
after
unless
night.
they use different sections of the penal code, of the municipal code, that would be a way to look at it, but they're basically the same.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's a good trivia question.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know.
The citations look a moving citation. Parking tickets.
My name's Jeff Mayfield. I'm on Hill Avenue, and I want to piggyback on the traffic issue. During the last few years that Councilwoman McCostin was our representative, there was a lot of focus on Hill Avenue. There's people that, particularly north of Washington where we live, people tend to drive a lot faster than they should. It's a 30 mile an hour at the bottom of that, just above Washington. And then when you get further up closer to Altadena, it's actually 20 miles an hour.
Can you give me the times that is most active? People usually tell me all the time. It's hard to put the officers everywhere all the time. Mathematically, it's impossible.
Yeah, I understand that, but we used to get speed traps out there during rush hour. It's been years since that's happened.
Yeah, the speeding traps are considered illegal, but we just enforce the traffic.
But I mean, I think the worst times tend to be during rush hour. But there can be times late at night where people are obviously going like highway speeds up those winding streets that don't really have a lot of
That's
extra room.
absolutely a pandemic phenomenon that's occurred everywhere in our society with people speeding late at night everywhere. Young kids, people letting out the frustrations, and it's really become a problem with traffic collisions, especially on the freeway. The collisions are worse. They have higher impact at higher speeds, and the CHP is charging at that issue and coming back to the old days of citing people for almost everything to slow them down. The other side of that, it's great when we want people to be cited for speeding until you get caught up in it and you're like, hey, you got the wrong person. And so it becomes a hard balance for everything. But I'll make sure, we were just talking about Hill and Washington and the area on Washington north of. So I know something's already being done. I just got to find out what this something is.
I appreciate that. And then further south, one of the reasons they made, I think it's right here, that they made it a right turn lane coming off of Hill was to avoid people trying to cut off from the.
Right.
People just, they just treat it now like it's another.
One of the other issues we're having in society, the right of way is actually a meaning. It means a person turning right has the right of way. People now making left-hand turns have commanded that theory. People making left-hand turns now have command, and the right-hand turn people now have to wait. So it's those kind of things are happening in our society, and trying to return back to the original principles and traditions that worked for all of us, it's a little bit difficult to get back there, but we're trying to. So I understand the problem there, though.
Thank you.
And also, Jeff, we have Department of Transportation who will be here to talk about the Hill Avenue improvements and other improvements that are happening in the city and how to report those types of things. Howie.
Harold Zeckner, I just want to say we're going to miss you guys. We want to thank you for everything you've done. It's going to be a huge transition. Thank you very much. It's going to be different. I'm sure it'll be fine, though.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Howie. We really appreciate that. I think between just the chief and I, we have about 90 years of experience here with the city. But the good news about the city is we have about 2,000 incredibly dedicated employees and maybe 15 not so dedicated. So, you know, we're here to support you, and I have complete faith and confidence in the council. They've done a good job picking city managers thus far, and I'm sure they'll continue that record.
He stole my thunder. My name is Dave Jacobs. I just wanted to get up here and thank both of you for the outstanding service you've done to the city. Steve, I met when he was I think you were a purchasing agent when we first met. And
That was like my fourth job.
I'm sorry?
I think that was like my third or fourth job,
Oh, okay.
but that's when I met you, Dave.
John, I've known for many years. I think he's done an outstanding job as the police chief. I want to wish you both well in retirement and live many years afterwards and take up that city retirement.
Thanks.
God bless. Thank you.
That's why we're retiring.
Well, I think I'm going to be a downer on this. But my name is Neil Larson. I live in Bungalow Heaven. I live on North Michigan Avenue, which has turned out to be a top filming area in the residential area. Anyway, we've been talking with the film department about the filming. A lot of times when we have permitted filming, the filming will start earlier than it's supposed to, go later than it has been permitted for, and then we have numerous unpermitted filming going on in the block. So, after talking with the film department and taking pictures and reporting it, they said the only way that they will accept any reporting is only if it's reported to the police and the police has to come out and file a report on it. Most of this filming is on the weekend, and I hate to bother the police department on a weekend because of a filming violation, but apparently this is the only recourse we have. And I just want to let you know this, and I kind of want to know if you know this, because...
Yeah, maybe you and I can talk afterward. That seems a little excessive. Filming is one of those things, it's kind of a mixed bag. It creates an opportunity for property owners to make some money off their home, and the neighbors usually can get a little money for their bother. It generates about $700,000 a year in permit revenue, which in a $900 million budget is nothing. So it's not something that the city is super eager in promoting, and sometimes it's more bother than it's worth. So what we want to do is have a balance, because some residents enjoy that and some neighborhoods welcome it and some not so much. So we need to have rules that are clear and enforced. No neighborhood should be overly burdened by it. It got weird during COVID because there were some people who were just nothing but filming, and more people were home because they're working remotely. So happy to talk to you about your particular issue. I'm not sure I buy into what was communicated to you.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you very much. Look forward to talking to you, and thank you.
I will add, though, on the weekends, if in fact it gets to a point where you're just frustrated, do call the watch commander. They'll walk you through it. They'll provide any assistance they can. They understand the balance, but we also want to be a resource for the city.
Perfect. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you, guys. Really quick note, I've been going to these meetings with my boss for 3.5 decades, and the meetings that the Councilmember Williams puts together are some of the most organized. So I appreciate everybody. It makes it easier for us to exchange. So I just appreciate when it's just well organized and everything. So thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And so as some of you know, our city manager and our police chief are retiring this year and next year. These two guys are probably some of the best in the nation. I don't think that we could have had better people leading us through some of the most difficult times we've had for the past year and a half, for decades. And we will really miss them. And thank you so much for your kind words, everyone. But I do want to also give them a round of applause again. Thank you for your service. Any more questions? Okay. Do we have another question?
When I listen to the city council meetings, it's always on homeless. And we're building homeless housing. And I'd like to know what the surrounding cities are doing. What is San Marino, Arcadia, Altadena, any of the, Monrovia, Glendale? I'd like to know what they're doing.
Not much.
Okay, why are then we doing everything?
Yeah, so
I really resent
yeah,
it.
it's true. You know, there's this thing called the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, RHNA.
Yeah, I understand that.
And each city is told what they're supposed to, not build, because cities don't build housing, but you have to zone for it. And Pasadena has followed the law and historically provided enough zoning to meet the requirement. Our number is like 9,500 over the next, say, 10 years, and they break it down by income levels. And typically, obviously, you hit the market rate number, but most cities come up short on the moderate and the lower income, just because, again, market forces. We have identified enough buildable sites within the city based on our current zoning to meet the state requirement. So we don't have to do anything special. We're expecting that the State Department of Housing and Community Development is going to approve our housing element that we recently submitted to them. So that's one piece of it. Another piece of it is we do have a homeless population in Pasadena. The last homeless count put it like in the high 500s. We talk about the impact of homeless people, these poor people living on the street, or some people causing disruptions in businesses. We need to get the people off the street, and the way to do that, of course, is to have somewhere for them to go.
How about San Marino?
That would be good. Permanent supportive housing has been identified as a good option. Right by City Hall in the YMCA building, there's 144 units of permanent supportive housing there, and we have other projects in the city, but you don't notice them because they're well done, and this allows people to rebuild their lives.
You really are missing my point. Other cities should be doing their building.
They should be doing
And if
theirs, and
they
they're
don't
not.
do it, where are we?
If everyone is speeding, should you still speed? I mean, I think that this community is serious about trying to address a problem. Most of the homeless people here in Pasadena aren't from somewhere else. They do have a connection to the city. We know that from our interactions with them. So I think our city council has done a great job in trying to address what is really the most intractable problem. When I think of all the problems local government has, and local government wasn't the cause of homeless, but it all falls on the local government. All the impacts fall on the residents, the businesses, and the local government. And it's been a systemic failure, and we're left with trying to fix it. I think Pasadena has a good record of trying to deal with it, but it is really the most intractable problem. But to do nothing will only exacerbate.
Well, if we insist that other people do their share, we wouldn't have to do any more.
We have no leverage over those other cities.
Every person I talk to, no matter what part of the city, is really against what is happening. We're building for people who won't work, can't work, and don't work. And I realize that's not everyone.
Yeah, we're not building as much of that as I think you think we're building.
You're housing people that won't, don't, and can't work. And everyone I talk to, except one person, resents it.
Yeah, maybe you can reference for me a particular project that met that criteria.
My thing is, other cities are not building or not doing their share.
And I think part of that the city used to be part of the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. We left and we went back. And so they have a housing trust fund. And so the mayor is working very hard on pushing us to look at housing as a regional issue, right? We shouldn't be building all in one city or all in one location.
But we are.
Because everybody's from the region. So we are trying to work more with our regional neighbors, which we haven't been for years, to try to make this more of a regional solution as opposed to Pasadena sort of having a lot of the issues. We also have a lot of the services here. We have a lot of nonprofits here. And so that's where the nonprofits are paired with the housing. But we are trying to work with the other cities to encourage that.
Homeless is a big business. It's a really big business, and somebody's making money off of it, and the rest of us are paying for it.
Well, it ain't the city.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name's Renee Crawford, and I was born and raised in Pasadena, and I love this community. In regards to the homeless, is there a coordinated effort for these individuals that will be housed, like a case manager, a case management, or someone to coordinate services so they can avail themselves to the appropriate supportive services? How does this get coordinated?
Well, we have what's called a continuum of care in the city. So we have a coordinated effort in dealing with the homeless people. As the police chief mentioned this past year, with the thanks of the city council, we funded a second Pasadena outreach team, which has a firefighter, paramedic, and social workers assigned to it. We have 3 HOPE teams in the police department that pair up police officers with a clinician. So we have a lot of outreach. And then we have emergency vouchers, motel vouchers. We have a whole system. Once we can cajole someone, and it often takes a long time, once we can get someone to trust us enough that they're willing to accept a housing voucher and then get them supportive services and help them move on, we have that system in place. The biggest challenge that we have is a lot of people are service resistant. And even though none of us would probably willingly go live out on the street, for some people, that's what they're comfortable with, and they don't want to do that. I got some pictures just yesterday. We're trying to work out a deal with Caltrans to let us go in by the freeway, because all that property by the freeway is Caltrans property. They maintain it. It's become a very popular spot for people to set up campsites. And in some cases, it's dangerous because it erodes the hillside, and people just shouldn't be living that way. We're trying to get their approval so we don't have to go ask them and take them months to come clean up. We can go in and do it. I saw these horrific pictures yesterday of people's living conditions on the hillsides, under the freeway, all this. So we have the capacity to deal with that. We just need to get some of the bureaucracy of Caltrans out of our way. And then once we can get people willing to accept our services, we do have the means to help them out.
Okay, well, that's good. I mean, I know it's a challenge, and it's good to know we have this set in place.
It's well organized. It's not haphazard.
No, that's great. I think that's great. Thank you.
Okay, and this will be the last question for this segment, and then we'll move on with the fire chief. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Beth Troy. I live nearby. What's the long-term plan for this campus now that it's no longer a school? Is it going to be sold for development or something, or will it stay in the hands of the district? What?
Well, it's the district's property, and it might be more appropriate for the superintendent to answer. We're hoping to use it for maybe up to 5 years because we're going to need to figure out a way to fix the central library, and that's going to take a little while.
Right, I heard that part earlier, but I wondered long-term.
Right. Well, Mr. Cahalan, I think, can explain what the long-term plan is.
So right now we do have a facilities task force that's looking into the district surplus property, which doesn't just include this building, but several other ones in the district. And the options that the school district has for what it can do with its property are restricted by various state laws. It's a little bit more flexible than it used to be, but there are some limitations in terms of, like, we cannot arbitrarily decide, for example, to sell this building to the city. We have to put it out on the market and try and find somebody that wants to buy it if we wanted to buy it. And then if the city wanted to buy it, they have the right of first refusal. They could then match that offer and buy the property if they wanted to. It's a ongoing process. The first step is for the Facilities Committee to come to the full board with a recommendation about what we should do. They have been working on this for a little over a year, but the process got very interrupted by COVID. It requires a lot of staff input, and of course, staff were busy doing several other things. But that is starting to move forward. Once once the board makes a decision about whether it's willing to get rid of certain pieces of property, then there's the 7-Eleven Commission, at which point the community is involved, there will be meetings, there will be town halls, people can come in and give their own 2 cents about what they think we should do with the property. The 7-Eleven Commission then gives a report to the board, and then the board makes a final determination. Are we going to sell the property, are we going to lease it, or are we going to keep it and do something else with it? I can't speak for the rest of the board members. I really shouldn't, but I definitely won't. From my own personal estimation, if the district is holding on to too much property, it impacts the district in several other ways. Like, we can only lease out the property that we do have for a certain price based on the square footage. So we have an incentive to get rid of some of our surplus property. I have studied enough of the school districts in the state of California to know that they do occasionally run into the problem of selling too much of their property, and then the demographics of their cities change in 10 or 15 years, and then they need to build more schools, but they don't have property to do that. This is happening in Palo Alto right now. So about 30 years ago, Palo Alto School District was in declining enrollment for several years, like we have been. They decided to solve this problem by just selling off all of their property. They got a decent chunk of change for it, but the housing prices in Palo Alto are even considerably higher than they are here in Pasadena. You can't buy a square lot big enough to build a school on it in Palo Alto for anything less than $50 million just for the land. So they're in a bind. We do want to avoid that problem, but we do have enough property spread out throughout the city that, in my opinion, we certainly could get rid of 1 or 2 or 3 parcels of land and still maintain good geographic coverage for when some of our neighborhoods that are older now and don't have as many children roll over in 10 or 15 or 20 years, and there's kids there again. So this is something that's ongoing. If you are interested in the results of the Facilities Committee, you can give me your email address, or you can, Felicia can give you mine. I didn't plan ahead, I didn't bring business cards tonight, but I'm happy to let you know when those meetings are. They are open to the public. You can attend via Zoom. You can see the progress that committee is making, and we take public comment. It's a Brown Act meeting. We'd love to hear what you think we should do.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Now we will move on to our fire chief, Chad Augustine, with a presentation, and then we will have an update from Water and Power.
Good evening to all of you. For those of you I have not met, my name is Chad Augustine and I'm your Pasadena Fire Chief. I'd like to start by thanking Councilmember Williams for the opportunity to be here tonight. Also my fire department members who just took off, they're working on a house fire right now, but hopefully they will be returned, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them anything. So I'd like to talk a little bit about our fire season, California fire season. And then at the end, I'm going to talk just a little bit about how Pasadena Fire has been using this facility, as well as give you an update on our staffing. Next slide. So unfortunately, California is on track again for one of the worst fire seasons in California history. And that's starting to become a recurring theme every year, right? Worst fire season in California history. So this year, over 7,700 fires year to date have occurred in California. We've burned nearly 2.5 million acres with 3 fatalities, and unfortunately, almost 3,300 homes have been burned. And I moved here recently from Northern California and have had numerous friends on the Caldor fire who lost homes up there. Next slide. So I want to talk about what's causing these devastating wildfires. There's 4 areas I'd like to highlight. The first are people. The second is drought. The third is climate. And the fourth is lack of forest management. And so as many Californians like to get out of the urban environment and into the hills away from people, what that means is that they're usually going into what we would call a WUI area or a wildland urban interface, an area that is prone for fire, has lots of trees, may not have good defensible space, and now we're having homes and neighborhoods being built there. And so that alone is causing an increase in risk of fires. It's also not a secret that we are currently in the 9th driest year on record, and that record goes back 127 years. The vast majority of our counties in California are in extreme drought conditions. And if we look back over the last 100 years, the LA area has increased in temperatures during the July, August, September area of about 8 to 9 degrees, which is substantial. So we are definitely having climate increases. And then the fourth is a lack of forest management. And this has been controversial through the years. We've had big swings where they've done aggressive forest management, and then swings to the other side where there was a lack of forest management. And what happens is you have dead and dying trees. The bark beetle came through and wiped out thousands and thousands of trees. What that left was basically kindling wood. And anytime you had a spark, a small fire, now you have lots of fuel. And so what I believe you will see in the near future is more aggressive forest management so that we limit that spread or the risk of spread of forest fires. Next slide. So what's emerging technology? We are here in Pasadena, which we like to say the center of the universe. And in 2021, we can send people to different planets, to the moon, to the Mars, but we're still fighting fires the same way we did 40 years ago. And so as I look at what is starting to change, we're using drones much more effectively. We can see the path that the fires are going. We can see assets that are at risk. We're looking at modeling, computer modeling of what a fire might do as it grows, which really allows us to be strategic in how we're deploying resources. So those drones are fantastic for us. We're also using artificial intelligence very well. We're starting to see satellites that can pinpoint fires as small as a few feet in diameter. And what's that do? Well, it's giving us early recognition and early response. We say on average fire doubles in size every minute, and that's very true for house fires, and it's not far off for wildfires until they get to a certain size. But if we can get resources there and extinguish that fire before it gets big, and we've had early access, then it's a win for everyone. And then going back to the predictive modeling that I was talking about, it really allows us to use GIS and mapping to show where the fire is going to be. So we're fighting fire much smarter than we did 20 years ago. Right now, we're seeing lots of fires in Northern California, but we say, hey, in Pasadena, how does this affect me? What are we doing here in Pasadena to make this community safer? And I'm really proud of our Pasadena Fire Department. Annually, we do over 4,000 high hazard fire inspections. And so we go into our areas that have the highest threat for a fire, and we look for, it's all in an effort to have prevention and education. So we're looking for defensible space. We're looking for access off the roadways to make sure our fire engines can get down the street to your homes. We're making sure that if you have trees that overhang your roofs that could cause fire spread, that we're helping you with that knowledge so that you can take preventative actions to make your homes and residences safer. Our crews do annual training with all the regional partners in the LA area on the latest firefighting techniques, because we recognize that in a large fire, and in our not so distant past, we had the Bobcat fire, you had resources from all over the state and out of state assisting there. And we recognize that when we have a large fire, it won't just be Pasadena Fire. It'll be every fire agency in our region assisting us. And so we know that the more we train together, the better we're going to be. We also have great partnerships through Mass Mutual Aid. And I like to say that California has the best Mass Mutual Aid system in California. Every year you have fire engines going up and down the state helping other agencies to fight their fires. In fact, we have a crew that just got back tonight, and they were in the Central Valley assisting with fighting one of the large fires there. We also, Pasadena does great work and our firefighters are amazing, but we only have so many resources. And some of those partnerships through the U.S. Forestry and CAL FIRE and LA County Fire give us lots of resources that are important, and that's aircraft, helicopters, airplanes, and in some of our areas that are difficult to access, having access to aircraft to drop water and retardant in a timely manner can make the difference between a large fire and a small fire. So we're really appreciative of those partnerships. Other things that we're doing is education and prevention efforts, and then finally evacuation plans. And you'll see we've been working on the west side, the Linda Vista area, because that's a very high hazard area, and our predictive modeling showed that as one of the top hazard areas in Pasadena, partly because of the difficulty with access and egress and the upsloping terrain. And so we're working on those evacuation plans, and then we're going to continue to work annually on other high hazard areas until we get through the entire city. Next slide. And then finally, what can you do to assist? We know that 189 Pasadena firefighters are not enough in the event of a disaster, but 189 plus 139,200 and change, Steve, is that correct? Yes. 138,000 members of the community all working together in a disaster. We're going to save a lot of lives and we're going to protect a lot of property. So what we ask you is to make sure when you go home, you look at your property, you make sure that you have good defensible space, you have a go bag. And what we've seen over and over again in disasters is a large loss of life from people that waited too long. They thought, I have time, I can gather a few more things. And so what we're saying is, hey, we can replace property, we cannot replace lives. Have a go bag, and in that go bag you need to have 1 to 3 days worth of living and simple things. A little bit of food, a little bit of water, some change of clothing, cash, because if we don't have electricity, we're going to need to be able to find a way to purchase things that are essentials like a flashlight and a whistle. And then have an evacuation plan and a backup plan if that primary route is blocked off. And then most importantly, as I said, don't delay leaving in a disaster. We can help you with getting back once the disaster's over. We can help you get to a safe location, but we want to make sure that you get out in the case of that disaster. Next slide. So I want to give a little bit of update on Pasadena Fire here at Jefferson Elementary and what we're doing here as a training center. So we've been amazingly thankful and blessed to be able to use Jefferson Elementary as a training center. And Pasadena Fire for many years has been struggling to find a place to do regular training for new hires as well as in-service training. And we just graduated on the 16th of September, 13 new firefighters. We're also on track to hire another 10 to 12 lateral firefighter paramedics with a tentative start date of October 25th. And they should be hitting out into the fire stations before the end of the year. This facility is also great because it's central, and so our on-duty crews can come here and they can do training. Last week we had EMS training. Our medical director and nurse were here. And so it's just a great location. We're super appreciative. So if you see our crews here, that's what we're doing. We're doing new hire training, and we're keeping our existing employees well-staffed and well-trained. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So next we have Water and Power. So Bawa Gacharan is here to give an update on your community utility. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk to you today. So we're going to do a little bit of a show and tell sort of a thing. I'm going to do a little opening, and then we'll cover topics of what's happening with the delinquent bills that Water and Power has a problem right now with, and I'll go over it. Undergrounding, somebody had a question about undergrounding, so we'll cover that. And we will also talk about, we're really excited about a new billing system that we have. But before I get into those details, I want to tell you, and you're the users of Water and Power services, that our reliability level has been one of the highest in the country. So we are one of those 2,000 dedicated, real good employees. We don't have those 15. On the power side, we are going green big ways. By 2040, we expect to be nearly carbon neutral. The state's target is 2045. And we need your help in reducing the carbon by buying and using electric vehicles or electric appliances at your homes. Our rebates for the electric vehicles are one of the highest in the state. On the water side, as you all know, we are going through a historic drought. And Pasadena is also suffering along with the other communities within California. So we are urging everyone to save water. Every drop that you save is a drop of water that has traveled probably 400 to 500 miles before it got to your tap. So be mindful of that. Our voluntary goal for reducing the water usage is 15%. We had a booth outside. It had a timer. It's a 5-minute timer, and that's really meant for your shower time. Some people may have a problem with that, but that's where we are heading, really. So during the COVID time, as a community, we had a lot of economic problems and a lot of people, about nearly 10,000 people, including businesses and individuals, have fallen behind in their payments. And state had some program. It didn't really bring any meaningful money to the utility, but now the federal government and the state have gotten together and collectively are putting close to $1.9 billion for the whole state. And so there's some hope, there's some light at the end of the tunnel that'll help the utility, your city, and people who couldn't pay the bills. So with that note, I'm going to pass it on to Jennifer Gus, who will give you a little bit more details about the program and what you or you don't have to do about it. Jennifer, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Guess. I'm the legislative analyst with the Water and Power Department. Here to provide a brief overview of 2 new state programs that will provide financial assistance directly to energy and water utilities that have pandemic-related customer bill delinquencies. And we also call these arrearages. There's one program for energy and natural gas utilities, and there's the other program which is for water and wastewater utilities. Both programs are federally funded, as Mr. Bawa mentioned, and they are both being implemented through the state later this fall. And what I mean about pandemic-related bill delinquencies, the law that established both of these programs define it as the same. So that means bills that are 60 days delinquent for services rendered between March 4th of 2020 and June 15th of 2021, and that are still delinquent at this time. And the way the programs are structured, the utilities must apply. So for water and power, because we provide both utilities, we can participate in both programs, but it's up to us to apply for that, and that is our intention to do that later this fall. And the law also requires that any utility that participates in these programs to apply that aid as a bill credit to a customer with eligible arrears. So, no checks need to be going out. You don't need to apply for anything. The work is on our end, and if there is the bill delinquencies when we receive the funding, we would just apply the credit going forward. And depending on how many utilities participate, it could cover some or all of the eligible arrears that we still have on the books. And if we do not receive enough funds to cover all of those, then the law requires that residential arrearages get first priority, because the program does apply to both residential and commercial arrearages. Next slide, please. There we go. Well, I'll just start. There we go. Timing-wise, these are being rolled out on a very assertive timeline. Utility applications are due to the state later this year, early December. We anticipate that the bill credits will start rolling out sometime in the first quarter of 2022. And as part of participating in this program, we will not be implementing any late fees or shutoffs during the implementation. And we approximate that it's about $8.2 million for both energy and water arrearages, a little over 10,000 customers. But as I mentioned earlier, full funding is not guaranteed because it depends on the utility participation statewide. So however many utilities choose to participate and how much they ask for on behalf of their customers. But if a bill credit does not cover a customer's full arrears amount, then in accordance with the law, we will be offering a payment plan, which of course we would do anyway, but just want to point out that that is part of the program requirements. So in the interest of time, I'll pause there and turn it over to our engineering manager for power delivery to talk about undergrounding. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Varujan Abedi, I'm the engineering manager for Power Delivery Division. And I'm here to give you a brief update on our undergrounding program for basically in District 2. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next one. Yes, as you may be aware, we completed Hill Avenue Underground District a few years ago with great success. Next slide, please. And these are basically two pictures, before and after pictures on Hill Avenue. On the left, you will see basically a before picture, and on the right, it's after picture, after completion of the project. And it's needless to say, it's much better than before. Our next project is Mountain Avenue Undergrounding District, which is from Lake to Hill Avenue. And we plan to start the design in December and complete it by November of next year. Right after, basically a few months after that, after we acquire contracts, we're going to start the construction. And we're planning to do construction from July of 2023 to September of 2024. After that, our Public Works Department is going to come in and resurface the street. Currently, we are projecting that the project will be completed by July of 2025. Next slide. That's pretty much my update on Underground District. If you have any questions overall on the undergrounding program, there's a link on the screen that you can basically go to, and there's a lot of good information there. With that, if there are no questions, I'll ask our IT manager, Jeremy Marquet, to give you an update on our new billing system.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeremy Marquette. I'm the Utility Operational Technology Manager with Water and Power. I'm going to talk a little bit about our billing system that we're implementing, that we're going to go live with at the end of this year. So, it's kind of exciting. Our billing system today is 20 years old, and it's antiquated and limited in what we can do and how we can provide service to our customers. So the new billing system is really going to be the foundation for a lot of automation and better customer service that we want to provide. Let me talk a little bit about some things our customers should know as part of this new billing implementation. So first off, there's a new bill format. So I don't know if anyone got a chance to look at it, but we've got some sample bills out there at our booth. Our goal was really just to modernize the bill with the look and the feel and the fonts. But what we didn't want to do was impact our customers too much. So if you take an old bill, you take a new bill, you look at them, the amount due is in the same spot, the billing line items will look similar, the readability is the same, and that's really just to minimize confusion at go live. Another thing our customers should know. So we're going to be implementing a new account number. So you imagine some customers have had their account numbers for 20 plus years. But the good news is the old account number will continue to work. So at least for 6 months after go live. So if you call in for customer service, go to make a payment, enroll into the new web portal, the old account number will still work. So we wanted to minimize the confusion there as well. And the new web portal. So, it's exciting. We're definitely going to have a lot more automated features. A couple pain points that I've heard talking to our customers are one, they want to be able to manage multiple accounts from one web login. We'll be able to do that. You'll be able to link multiple accounts, make a payment for multiple accounts. If you're a property manager or something, it's really a benefit. Another thing, so we're going to be able to do green paperless billing. So if you go into the web portal, you'll be able to see an image just like the paper one. It's identical. So, and then roll for paperless billing. So it's really exciting. I know we're behind the times, but what we're doing is we're revamping and we're modernizing. So, next slide, please. This is just, this is just a screenshot from the new portal. We're really excited because it's just an easy to use navigation. We've used some modern graphics to kind of just get to the point. Most customers just want to get in, get out, see their bill, make a payment. We've, used some icons that are just a little bit more modern and have a better look and feel. Next slide, please. So another important project that's going to happen after the billing system replacement is the smart meter project. So, definitely is a major initiative in its own. So what we're hoping to do here with the smart meters is provide our customers with more information about how they use water and power. The idea is that we're going to get some benefits too as well. I know one of the challenges within the city is just water leaks. Our residential customers bill bi-monthly. And a lot of times we won't know about these leaks until 60 days have passed. So with the new AMI system, we'll be able to do leak detection. So really, we'll be able to look at that behavior and, within days or hours in some cases, be able to, send a notification. The other thing too that's exciting about having the smart meters in is we'll be able to offer, some more sophisticated time of use rates. Obviously, we've got to go through and figure out what that means for us and get them approved. But it's really it's the groundwork. The new CIS system plus the smart meters will really allow us to modernize. So it's a big project. It's not going to happen at the end of this year. It will require that we replace every meter in the city. So the timeline is roughly 2 to 4 years to do that. But again, that's our goal is to make this happen as soon as the billing system project's over, is to start the smart meter project. Any questions? Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Hope you all have a good night.
Thank you, Water and Power. So in the interest of time, we will go ahead and do the transportation presentation because I know there are a lot of questions on this. Once that is done, we will go ahead and give away the UCLA tickets, and then we can have people stick around for questions and answers. If you are on the Zoom, put your question in the Q&A and we can ask it and try to answer it sort of by typing in the answers as we go here, because I do want to get people out at 7 o'clock. So Department of Transportation. This is Nader, and we will put up his presentation. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So, good evening, and thank you for having me tonight. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Nader Asmar. I'm with the Department of Transportation, and I'm the division manager over the Mobility, Planning, Engineering, and Operations Division. As you can see, we have, just as a quick FYI, we have 4 divisions in the department. I manage that 3rd division, but I'm happy to take any questions you have regarding parking or transit. But we have a lot of projects that I'm excited to talk about in our division. Just by the way, I've only been a city employee in Pasadena for about 6 months. So please forgive me if I don't know the history of all these projects that we're working on, but I've gotten up to speed very quickly. We have a really good staff and a lot of good work. Next slide, please. So the first project I'd like to talk about is the North Hill Complete Streets project. I know somebody had a question about this project earlier. So this project will include installation of traffic circles on North Hill at 2 intersections, at Topeka Street and Elizabeth Street. This project was really born in 2016 through an advisory committee of volunteer residents, which worked with a consultant to develop, various plans for that corridor due to resident concerns about speeding and such. In March 2017, the proposed improvements were presented to the residents of North Hill and were met with very strong support. The goal of the project is really to calm the traffic on North Hill. Currently, those traffic circles, the 2 of them, are in around 60% design. We usually design like 30, 60, 90. So we're in the 60% right now. And we do anticipate that construction could begin in spring of next year. Once the final design is completed and before construction, we will post the plans on the DOT website and send postcards to the residents along the corridor, so they're aware of the elements of the final design. We also plan to hold a neighborhood meeting to review the final design elements and make sure that all questions are answered. We're currently meeting with the residents on the 4 corners just to make sure that they're happy with the landscaping and the things that are happening right in front of their houses. Next slide, please. The next project is the Mountain Street Complete Streets project, which is a project that provides for the design of a raised median island on Mountain Street at Sierra Bonita and the traffic circle at Mountain Street and Sinaloa. So 2 different intersections on Mountain. Again, this was born through a Complete Streets working group process in 2018. It was evaluated for potential safety enhancements. Residents approved the concept of installing a raised median and the traffic circle. These enhancements are also intended to reduce speed and enhance safety. The design is expected to be completed in spring of 2022. This one really just started. And the anticipated construction is difficult to gauge right now, but it's dependent really on the final cost estimate of the project and funding availability. The Allen Street Gold Line or L Line Safety Enhancements Project is a project really intended to enhance the safety and walkability along Allen Avenue between Villa and Colorado. The main goal is really to provide better connectivity to the Gold Line or L Line station. This project went through many community meetings. We had 4 community workshops in 2018 to kind of develop a concept plan for this corridor. Recently, we received a $500,000 grant from SCAG, or the Southern California Association of Governments, for a quick build pilot project, which basically means installing some of the elements in paint and plastic and testing them out before they become permanent in concrete. Really, this project is intended to enhance, improve active transportation and what is called like first, last mile infrastructure. And what I mean by that is, when I say active transportation, I'm really referring to modes other than driving, such as walking, biking, taking buses, to really try to reduce those vehicle miles traveled. And active and first mile, last mile is really a concept related to like when you take a train, for instance, and you get off in Pasadena, that next mile to get to your job or to get to your destination, how do you get there? We want to improve the area around stations in general so that people don't have to drive that distance, right? They don't have to call an Uber or drive to a parking lot or something like that. The Allen Avenue Quick Build project will allow the community to benefit quickly from improvements and test out and provide input before they are permanently constructed. Currently, we're working with SCAG and coordinating on this project, and we're going to have a kickoff meeting very soon. The next project I want to talk about is the North Lake Avenue Traffic and Pedestrian Safety Enhancements Plan. So this project is a development of a conceptual plan for Lake, what we call North Lake. The goal of this phase is to develop a conceptual plan that focuses on improving the safety and comfort of pedestrians on North Lake between Mountain Street and the L Line station. So far, and it was very recently this year that we had 3 public workshops for this project. At the second workshop, we did receive a lot of interest in providing a bicycle component to this project and having some alternatives. So we did consider two different bike options. We looked at the feasibility and are currently considering another concept, a third bicycle alternative that we recently received additional comments on. So we're studying that third option for feasibility as well. We did have a very recent third virtual workshop on August 31st, and we're currently reviewing all the comments. We received a lot of them, by the way, and questions, and we will be posting like answers and FAQs on our website in the next, probably in the next month or so. The final concept plan for North Lake is scheduled to be, or estimated to be released by the end of the year. Another project we're working on is what we call the Mountain Street Holliston Area NTMP. NTMP stands for Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. This is really to deal with speeding and other safety concerns in that Mountain Street Holliston Avenue neighborhood, which is in District 2. The NTMP is a comprehensive process for managing traffic volume, traffic speeds, and traffic-related noise in the city's residential neighborhoods. This program relies heavily on community input to determine the best suited traffic management measures for a particular neighborhood. Specific measures include reconfiguration of roadway striping, alteration of signal timing, installation of signs like regulatory and warning signs, and installation of traffic calming devices. DOT just contracted with a local transportation planning firm to conduct the NTMP for this neighborhood, as well as 2 other neighborhoods that are further to the west in Districts 1 and District 3 and 5. The projects will be conducted one at a time with some overlap, moving from west to east, with the North Raymond project first, Mountain and Summit second, and then the Mountain and Holliston project being the third project. Greenways. So the Greenways feasibility study is something I really want to talk about. And it has a little bit of a history. We did a bicycle transportation action plan in 2015, where we looked at bicycle connectivity in the city and plan for the future. In that action plan, we identified 4 corridors as possible low-stress corridors for persons that are biking. And by low stress, we mean like routes that are not on like major corridors where there's a lot of traffic, a little bit calmer. We're also looking at north-south routes that traversed the freeway, so that either went over the freeway or under the freeway, that didn't really have freeway off-ramps and such, that carried less volume. And there were 4 corridors selected for further analysis. 3 of them actually have portions in District 2. And so after that transportation action plan, or bicycle transportation action plan, we did a feasibility study to look at the 4 corridors. And basically what that was a way to look at if we were to do improvements on these corridors, how much would they, what kind of things could we do? Could we possibly do to calm them even further? How much would they cost? What elements might be feasible that we could possibly take to the community and get more feedback on? So these are concepts that could be eliminated and could be implemented. And the feasibility study actually had some concepts for each of the 4 corridors that could be looked at by persons interested. The elements basically include slowing the traffic on the sections of the roadway using things like traffic circles, maybe parking chicanes where the traffic goes from one side to the other, speed control, maybe some chokers and things like that. Currently, none of the 4 projects have dedicated funding yet. And nothing on these 4 corridors would be implemented without a community process and community support. Right now, they're only ideas, and they give us a starting point to discuss possible measures with the community. So the full report can be viewed at the link that's on this slide, and really would like for people to view it and comment on the improvements. You can submit comments on the website if you'd like, and the feasibility study is linked there. We're doing kind of like a roadshow right now where we're going to try to attend community meetings, neighborhood town halls like this in each of the corridors, and try to inform people about the projects and try to garner some feedback. So you should be hearing more about this in the next few months. This slide shows a couple of portions of the corridors. One on top is on Craig and at Lambert and Las Lunas, and it shows what maybe possibly a traffic circle and some red curb in some areas. Again, these are things that are just very high-level concepts that we could consider. And here's also a little piece of Sierra Bonita at Asbury. Yeah, and so that's the Greenways. The next exciting thing is that we did receive, and Steve Mermel talked about this a little bit earlier, about money that we received through the American Rescue Plan, or ARPA. We did receive some money. It was allocated by council recently for 2 new traffic signals on Orange Grove Boulevard. They're not, I don't think they're directly in this district, but they're very close. One is at Orange Grove and Craig, and the other is at Orange Grove and Sunny Slope. The designs are currently about 90% complete, and we anticipate construction hopefully sometime next year. Maybe we can begin. We do have to finish the designs and come up with the final cost estimates, make sure we have enough funds in those ARPA funds to move forward to bid it and award it to a contractor for construction. But I think this is very good news. And then the last kind of thing that I want to talk about are traffic investigations, or what we call TIs in District 2. So traffic investigations is like when somebody has a request, a complaint for something related to parking, new signage, stop signs, traffic signals, side distance concerns, anything like that. We open up what we call a traffic investigation, and we log it in, we send engineers out to look at it in the field. We do have to study some of the things versus national guidance, national warrants that allow us only to do certain things for stop signs, for instance. But we do investigate every request we get. Here's a little map that shows some of the TIs in your district. We currently have 12 open traffic investigations in the district, and we've completed approximately 33 of your requests so far this year. And if you would like to submit any new requests, you can always submit them through the Citizen Service Center, or there's a link there, or you could call that number, which is the 311 number. We do have various concerns around the community, mostly related to traffic signs, side distance, some speeding concerns, and some new crosswalk requests and things like that. And that sort of summarizes some of the major projects that we're working on in the district. I do direct you to our website if you have questions, if you want more information about these and other projects. We have a transportation improvements link that has a lot more information than I presented tonight. And I'd be happy to answer questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Nader. It seems like you've been here 6 years, not 6 months. So I do want to make a comment that we unfortunately did have a fatality on Allen Avenue. And that was a traffic fatality, and that's one of the investigations that you saw on the map. So I do want to recognize that. And we do have some of the neighbors here. It's a horrible loss of life, and so we are looking into ways that we can prevent that in the future. But I did want to recognize that. So do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say my name's Elaine Rice, 1500 block of Las Lunas. The day after Labor Day, one of our dear neighbors went on her typical morning walk that she's done for the last 40 years. As she was on her way back home crossing Allen, she was struck and killed. And we are very heartbroken. We're asking the city if they can look into putting a flashing crosswalk. That's a popular route for us. We're blocked off at Hill on our morning walk, so we naturally gravitate toward Altadena Drive. And Allen is a very busy street. It's the only busy street we would have to cross in order to get toward Altadena Drive. People fly down there, they try to make that light, and they're coming downhill, of course, so they're flying, and we just want to be safe. We enjoy the walk. We need the exercise because of the COVID. So we're asking for a flashing crosswalk. Please be put across Allen on Las Lunas. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that's our presentation from DOT. I think what we will do right now is we will go ahead and give away the UCLA tickets, and then we'll stick around and we can do questions and answers, not as long as you like, but until they kick us out of here. If the way we will do this, I will ask the question. In the audience, raise your hand. On Zoom, raise your virtual hand. They can do that, right? So raise your virtual hand. We will have you answer the question. If you get the question right, then you get 4 tickets to the UCLA Arizona State game on Saturday. That kickoff is at 7:30 p.m. Okay, so from the presentations, last month, how many fire recruits graduated in this building from the fire training? What is the number of, okay, so did we have anyone online? Right here, the woman with the dark mask and the white shirt. That's you. 13? Yes, that is correct. So so the UCLA go to take, what is your name? Oh, is that Liz? Oh, that's Liz. Okay, so Liz Pomeroy. So the tickets will go to Liz Pomeroy, and Darla will get your information. She will send you those via mobile phone. And just for fun, this is a fun question. Back in the 1920s, how did they keep the grass on the field at the Rose Bowl trimmed? Does anyone know the answer to that? What's the answer? Next slide. That's it. That is so we go from sheep and goats to drones to hybrid Zoom town hall meeting. So that's what we've done in the last 100 years. So thank you so much for joining us. We are, all of the staff is still here. We could ask questions. I have a few questions online that we can interact and we can type the answers in on the Zoom, but you're welcome to stay here and interact with each other, interact with the staff. Thank you so much for coming. Good night.